don't skimp out on investing in your education, because it can lead to so many opportunities that you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. I didn't know
Right.
what all of these rights were to charge. Like, I didn't know like how much money I was leaving on the table. And
Mhm.
until I invested in my education, that's when I saw I'm missing something here, and like I can improve now. Like, I've made these
Yeah.
past mistakes, and now it's only up from here because I've invested in educating myself. Like, now I
Yeah.
know better. It's a game changer when you actually decide to like bet on yourself.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. And today we have a really fun guest. I love having guests around, but it's even more of an honor when I have one of my students here. This is Natalie. She went through my Spawn Master course and then the accelerator, and then now I am her manager. Pretty much offered her management seat at the end of the Brand Deal Accelerator program, which I actually could have offered her the management before the Brand Deal Accelerator, but she was just like, I just want to learn. I still feel like there's a lot more things that I can learn as far as negotiating. And even when we're doing negotiating as manager and client, she's still asking me, like, well, how did you get to this number? So I really love that student mentality and student mindset because, that's how you keep growing. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It's been long overdue, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited. And I know a lot of the people that listen to this podcast really want to hear about your experience and how you got to this position. And obviously, would love to also have the opportunity to be in this position, someday. So let's just jump into it. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you got started as a content creator. Like, what made you, want to create content around finance?
Yes. So back in 2020 is when I started. One thing about me is I've always been obsessed with wanting to become rich. I grew
Nice.
up in a pretty middle class family, and I knew that like when I was going into college, like I wanted to be a business major. I wanted to have my own business someday. So that was all the content that was around me. Like, I was consuming a lot of business and finance books, videos, and so appropriately on social media, that's all the content that I would get. And
Mm-hmm.
back in 2020, during COVID, there was a huge stock market crash. I saw the opportunity to start investing my money. At that point, I had been working a 9 to 5 job for 2 years, and I had
Mm-hmm.
just been saving my money. I haven't invested. And so I started just initially posting that on my Instagram stories.
Oh,
And
wow.
a lot of friends and family started DMing me like, whoa, like how do you invest? Like, what are you investing in? How much
Mm-hmm.
should you invest? And I would basically get all the same questions in all
Yeah.
of these individual DMs. And it was exciting at first because I was super excited to just share my journey, but it
Mm-hmm.
got super repetitive. And I was like, I need to find a solution for this. And so
Right.
my friend was telling me, why don't you just write down all of these questions that people are asking and start making videos about it on TikTok?
Mm.
So that's basically what I did. And here we are. Like, I'm still doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember, in 2020, me and my brother-in-law, my sister, and like some of my friends would always like text each other like, oh, like you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And it was kind of cool because like I've never been into like investing or stocks or whatever, but it was just nice to learn a little bit about it because I've never really done it before. That's cool how you got started with that because it naturally is that way too because it's like, if you want to be an influencer, content creator, it's naturally like where you have influence in offline. Like for me, I started out as a beauty blogger because all of my friends were asking me about what foundation do you use? Like what lipstick is that you're wearing? And so naturally I was just like, okay, if this is something that my friends and my family are constantly asking, that's naturally who I'm going to attract online too. So talk to us a little bit about like your first brand deal, because I know like you kind of just like organically created all these videos because you wanted to help friends and family, and it just kind of blew up for you. When did you start attracting brands? So like what did that look like?
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't until a year and a half later. I wouldn't even say that they came to me. It was me being
Mhm.
proactive. Like, I started to see
Oh,
videos on how do you actually monetize as a content creator? Like, if I wanted to do this
nice.
full time, how can I sustain myself? And so I
Mm,
saw that there were different brand platforms that connected creators and brands. And one of them was
yeah.
called Popular Pays. Have you ever heard of that one?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. Yeah,
So
that was one of my favorites at the time. Yeah.
yeah, that was my favorite too because I think that my first deal was actually a UGC deal, and it was just
Nice.
basically making a video for a investing research company. But then
Okay.
so that was UGC, but then the next deal that I got from Popular Pays was a sponsorship with eBay. I guess they were casting for Seattle business finance creators, and so I
Hmm.
actually went downtown and they had this like mini pop-up. They paid me like I want to say $500 for one video, and at the time I was
Nice.
like, wow, this is great because I think I only had 10,000 followers at the time.
I think I remember that campaign that you're talking about because I did the same pop up in
Okay,
LA. It was like basically, like if you
authentic.
wanted to sell something that you don't use anymore, and so I think it was like a pair of shoes that I had just sitting around that I don't use anymore, and it was like and you can get it appraised or something like that, and it was like a limited edition. I think it was like SBs or something like that, and like those, with the guys, they love that stuff. So
Yes, they value it. It was, I think,
mhm.
the eBay authenticity guarantee. I
Yeah,
brought
yeah,
probably
yeah,
like,
it was that one, yeah.
that was a
I
fun one.
remember. That was really fun, yeah. I remember because I don't know who drove me. Someone drove me. I think it was one of my friends, and then we had to take pictures and stuff like that, which was really fun. And I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, where you were like already thinking forward. Like, if I wanted to be doing this full time, I need to essentially learn the ropes of like, how do I get brand deals, how do I monetize my platform, how do I turn this into a full-time gig. Like, make that decision for yourself. I know if it felt like it was immediate for you, that you needed to start educating yourself, when a lot of people usually kind of like do it as a hobby for as long as possible, and then when they become big, like that's when they start thinking about monetizing. Like, and I know the importance of investing and educating yourself. Like, what made you decide to look up information? What made you decide to get help? Things like that.
For me, since I've always been obsessed with money, like I knew the importance of like having multiple lines of income. And so like for me, I
Mm-hmm.
had my 9 to 5 job where I made income. I invested my money to make it grow. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
this creating content like could make me money somehow. I just have to figure out how to do it. And that comes like, like
Yeah.
that comes with educating yourself. Like this wasn't the
Right.
first hobby that I've had that I tried to make a business. In fact, I've tried to make multiple businesses out of different side hustles like social media marketing agency, drop shipping. I've always been interested on how to make money online, and I knew that there were creators making money online. I just wanted to figure out how and educate myself.
Nice. I love that. And, I think for me, like, and that's kind of what drew me to you. I kind of see myself in you a little bit, because I was like that too. Like, when I made the decision that I was like, I hate my job, or like, I didn't hate what I was doing, but I hated like the 9 to 5 corporate lifestyle. I was willing to learn anything. I was like, I knew obviously the first thing that I knew how to do was create content as an influencer, but like I was open to do other things. And that was kind of how I got to where I am, is because I was open to learning other things, and I wasn't afraid to, like, I guess, like, take risks, so to
Yes.
speak. I know myself. I know how dedicated I can be. I know how hardworking I can be, but like it was just fun, I guess, to learn because it was something new and something exciting. And just seeing people kind of thrive in this space, I was just like, there's so much room for people to succeed online compared to like, brick and mortar or like the traditional way of doing business. You know what I mean? Tell us a little bit about the best brand partnership that you've had the opportunity to work on. Like off the top of your head, like what do you feel like, was the most exciting brand partnership that you've had to work on?
The most exciting brand partnership I've ever had to work on was actually through the Her Campus agency. Have you heard of Her Campus
Yes.
Media?
Yeah.
So they had an exciting partnership with Zelle, and
Oh,
they
nice.
wanted to cast a talent to help people stop falling for scams,
Oh,
especially because back in the time, I think a lot of people were falling for the job scams where they
Mm-hmm.
were paying these fake companies like money because they thought that they needed to
Mm-hmm.
pay them in order to get the computer. Honestly, really sad. Like I saw
Yeah.
videos about that, like people being devastated because they were looking for a job and instead
Mm-hmm.
depleted their money because they fell for the scam. And so
Right.
it was really fun for me because that's something I've been passionate about. Like I literally fell for so many scams in my life. It's not even funny. Like
Yeah.
I've been scammed out of like $450 from like something that I thought like I was buying a dog. And so it just
Oh,
felt like,
wow. Oh my God.
no, it was really sad. I thought that a dog was coming and it never came. And I got scammed.
Yeah.
I think I got scammed almost $500 from it. And it was through Zelle.
Yeah.
So, once you Zelle someone something, it's very hard to get that money back. And so
Right.
since we were casting this campaign, it was exciting because I felt like I was that target audience. And it was fun for me because this was the first time a brand has ever flied me out to a different state, comp
That's
the
cool.
flights, comp the hotel, and just paid me for educating.
Nice. That's amazing. Yeah, I know what you mean though. Like I remember 2020, I wanted a dog so bad and I was tempted. There was a specific dog that I was looking for. I was looking for a doodle. They were telling me, "Oh, you need to send money through this or whatever." I immediately held myself back because I was like, I kind of think this is a scam because I can't get this money back. And I ended up like just going through like a shelter after that. But I do know what you mean though, because that happens so much also to creators to where like I think Zelle is one and then PayPal is another one too, where they're telling you, oh, just send it through friends and family so that you don't get the fee or whatever. But like once you send that money, you can't dispute it through PayPal if it's sent through friends and family. And so
Exactly.
that was like one of the really big scams that a lot of people do for content creators who are like, oh, well, we'll send you product, but like we need you to pay for shipping or like we need you to pay for customs or whatever. And it's sad because there's still people that fall for that stuff. But yeah, no, I love that. That's cool. Where did they fly you again?
They flied me to Georgia, Atlanta.
Atlanta, Georgia. Nice. I love that. That's cool. Okay. So what do you think helped you increase your, inbound opportunities for like UGC and for brand partnerships and also be able to secure like rework? Because I know from, us working together, like I feel like that is probably your strongest suit is getting repeat work and getting like a strong clientele to where like you're not really worried about, where am I going to get the money 3 months from now, things like that. What do you feel like you did differently so that brands would hire you over and over and secure these long-term deals?
Definitely investing in my education
Mm-hmm.
because the UGC clients that I have today, a lot of them came from like deals that I actually reached out to them back in 2022. Uh,
Okay.
so I invested in several creator coaches who taught me like the importance of being proactive and pitching. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like back in 2022, not a lot of creators were doing that
Yeah.
because I remember pitching to 100 companies in the finance space,
Mm-hmm.
20 of them responding and like hopping on a call with like 5 to 6 of them. And like
Nice.
I still work with like 3 of them today that
Cool.
hire me month over month. And I feel like the biggest thing is just being professional with those repeat clients. Like they know they can
Mm-hmm.
expect content like on a timely manner or early at some points. Being being able to communicate, like if I am going to be late, like how many days to expect content to be
Mhm.
delivered by, and just like the quality of content. I think
Mhm.
with the finance space, it's a niche where you want someone who has built trust with an audience. And so they look at me as an authority in this space,
Yeah.
especially for those repeat clients. And
Mhm.
I've been lucky enough that like last year and this year, I don't have to pitch as much now. Majority of my brand deals that I've gotten have been inbound. And I think it
Mhm.
just comes with time. Like I've been creating content since 2020. And
Mhm.
so to me, I see each of this piece of content going out
Yeah.
to an audience. Like you never know when that content is going to surface back up and like how
Right.
relevant it can be today. My post is evergreen. So like how to build your credit score, how to invest in the stock market. And I know
Mhm.
TikTok is prioritizing to be more of a search engine optimization engine. And so
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
seeing like videos that I posted a year ago get a lot of views, like more so than my old content.
Yeah.
And I think that's helping me get more inbounds because at the end of the day, the people who work at the agencies are like people who look like you and me. Like
Mhm.
I've talked to some of the brands that I work with now and I ask them how do they find me? And they say that, oh, your content was just top of mind. A lot of the girls follow you personally because they're looking for money help.
Yeah.
And that's just like it's kind of
That's
surprising
cool.
to me.
That's really cool. And especially because like, people our age like didn't really learn that in school. And I think like even, other generations, like older generations didn't learn that in school either. But like, it's so vital for us to learn that now, especially with like how the economy is looking and like the transition between, traditional jobs and the gig economy and like how to navigate the industry with the internet, right?
Mhm.
And I love all the nuggets that you talked about there. You talked about being professional, being on time, being communicative. I don't remember who said it, but basically the saying goes like the talent can get you to the room, but like, everything else, like, how you're like, if you're professional, if you're like your character, essentially, your character will help you stay there. That really goes to show that, all of this stuff like I know like you see this too with other content creators where they're like, oh, I sent all these pitches, like why am I not getting the opportunity now? But a lot of those things you've built over time. Like you say that, right now you don't really rely so much on pitching anymore as much as you used to, but in the beginning of your career you did, and you've built all these relationships with brands. And I know, like, for example, we have that one partnership where you worked with them before, but I don't know if it was like years later, but like they reached out to you again because you were top of mind. And so sometimes like things don't, they fall through one point in time, but like, those like because you were building relationships first, those brands still remember you later on and just be like, oh, this is the right timing to do it. And so sometimes like it all has to do with timing as well. The one skill that you didn't know how to do or you didn't feel confident about, coming into, being a content creator or like being in business for yourself, and how did you work on that skill?
The biggest problem for me and why I personally joined your program, like all programs, was I had a hard time with pricing myself and negotiating. Like
Yeah.
I truly had no idea how much I should be charging. Like I was losing so much money on the table because of false information from other creator coaches. Like
Right.
it's insane to me like how much I've been able to increase my income through joining your program.
That's
Like
so cool.
you know it. Like you've seen all of like the deals that I have like asked you help for. And
Right.
like sometimes it's insane to me that like wow, I could have been charging that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like
Right.
I think the way you communicate the negotiation like process really matters. Like the way
Mhm.
that you've been able to help me like word it in a way that's more collaborative rather
Yeah.
than like give me my money,
Like,
like
yeah.
like
I think I was trying to figure out, the opposite of collaborative. I think it's like combative.
demanding, entitled.
Mhm.
The way that you've like I've learned that through your program has honestly been a game changer for my business. Now I'm able to focus on quality content rather than
Mhm.
pushing out so much content in order to make a
Right.
living.
Yeah, and that's awesome because I mean, for me, the goal is always to help creators make as much money, like basically maximize the deal without having to work so much. And I think, it's just nice to have, you having access to my perspective because for me, I've seen what's worked across a lot of different creators. And so I know what's out there. And because you only see what's in front of you, you don't really get to see that. And so you're kind of like, trusting my confidence. And I'm like, I like when we're working together, and sometimes you're just like, am I really going to send $30,000? You know what I mean? But like I'm telling you, I was like, well, does the math? And you're just like, yes. And then it's like, okay, then the maths. And if they have an objection, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And so the point of me doing that is because I ultimately want to build your confidence. And I want to build, every creator that I work with, I want to be able to build their confidence in the value of the content, the quality of the content that you bring to the table. Because sometimes it gets kind of knocked down by the algorithm, or like a brand who's saying like, well, why are you charging that much? Like your views aren't even good or whatever. And sometimes, we tend to believe that. And so, it's just important to keep reminding yourself like what you bring to the table as far as, businesses and brands wanting to make money and create cash flow through creators and influencers. And I love that you said, obviously, like when you're pricing yourself as a small creator, it's hard to kind of like quote unquote justify it. And sometimes it's like the objection is like, well, it's just UGC. You know what I mean? But like, the impact, like us looking at the numbers and the data of like, well, they're hiring you for a reason, and they're hiring you over and over for a reason. And it's because it's converting. And so when we're seeing that pattern, like we have to look at the numbers and follow the money of like, well, they're making money, obviously. And so we need to, increase that to meet basically like what they're making. So
One point here, like I know you helped me with one of my UGC clients, and it's like
mhm.
the data was very obvious. Like they were spending in 1 year like 200K on my ads, and then the other year 400K. And so it's
Wow.
like, why can't they give me a little more cut than $100 per video?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think, a lot of brands get away with it because there's just not enough information. There's not a lot of education, and like creators just don't know any better. And brands are actually betting on that. And that's why I am such a huge advocate for like, and I know you are too, of like, you need to educate yourself. You need to learn how to advocate for yourself. You need to know where you should be pricing, and you need to know how that number goes up and down. You need to know like ahead of time what these brands are thinking, because if you don't, the brands can tell from a mile away that you don't know what you're doing. For small creators especially, like and actually like creators in general, like brands know that a lot of us like work alone. We don't really, usually don't talk to other people and be like, oh, what did you get? We don't have coworkers, and
Yeah.
so when that doesn't exist, like it's so easy for a brand to take advantage.
They capitalize on your lack of knowledge for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, totally. Like that one deal that we just closed, you were like, I can't believe that you did that. Cause like the last deal that I did with them was like 1,000 for 4 videos. And now it's like 3 videos for like multiple four figures.
God, that was how much I made in the past 2 years with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, yeah. And I think to me, the biggest thing is delivery, because like you can say it's 10, like for example, you tell a brand it's going to be $10,000. There's a huge difference between just saying it like that, or saying, hey, like I know this might be steep, but could you work with us for $10,000, or how close can you meet us here? And that just like sounds more inviting and collaborative, of like there's still a little bit of room that you're opening the door for the brand to negotiate, right? And also you're for me, like I love to pre-handle those objections too, of like, hey, like I know you said you wanted this much, this much usage, or like this many months of exclusivity. Just so you know, this is going to cost a lot. Are you okay with that? And if they say, yeah, we're okay with that, give us a number, then, that means that they can afford it. But like, if you don't handle those objections right away, then obviously the brand's going to get sticker shock, or they're just going to ghost you, or they're just going to say, no, like, the most that we can do is like $300. You know what I mean?
Yes. What I love about what you do is you always ask questions first. And I feel like when you're a creator and you're just on your own, like you just want to, like, you're so excited, you just want to give a number.
Yeah.
Then they start sneaking in all of the rights and exclusivity, and you're like, wait, we didn't talk about this. And it's you feel like it's too late to like talk about it, because like you feel like the deal's on the line. But then with you always bring that up front, and so there's like there's
no
barely
surprises.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I think it's because, I mean, I didn't used to do that, but I think over time, to me, like I always look for patterns. Obviously, I'm an engineer. And so I love seeing patterns, and I love kind of improving processes and looking at data, looking at results. And so when I see that pattern of like, I'm always seeing little things in the contract that we never discussed. And so moving forward, I'm just like, okay, how can I eliminate this risk? And so that's where asking questions comes in. Also, in the back of my mind, every time I do that, I always say, like, I'm just stalling. I mean, it's kind of like sometimes that could be a negative way of looking at it, but like for me, I'm stalling for a reason. And that's just because I want to have the best number possible without over quoting, under quoting, things like that. And then also, I know a lot of creators also like hate negotiating, and they would much rather not do it. And that's why they're just like so eager to say yes, or like they hate the back and forth. But also, like, if you don't do the back and forth, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. And that's why it's so important for you to be asking those questions, because, for example, you didn't talk about usage and exclusivity, and it shows up in the contract. And so, like, for example, it's a non-negotiable for them, and you've already said yes to a number, then you've already undercutted yourself, or they take it out of the contract completely, which could have been potential more money in your pocket if you had discussed it in the beginning. So, and, we know for you, like, exclusivity usage is so huge, and it can exponentially like increase your contracts by a lot more just by having it. And so like the more that we're seeing that pattern, the more you're just like, okay, we need to be asking this every single time, because especially I think with like tech companies, finance companies, they really care about exclusivity, usage, things like that.
Yeah, it really matters. And also, I feel like rightfully so, it's best to charge for that, because it is an opportunity cost on my end to be connected to that finance service or finance product.
Right, exactly. And if you think about it too, it's not just finance too, but like when you think about a specific product or service, like it's kind of bad for you as a creator to promote one product and then their direct competitor the next month, And so you have to kind of look at those ahead of time and say, do I really want to endorse this product? Because if my followers or someone who knows me sees me promoting something else and tell them it's the best thing in the world when I said the same thing about the other guy last week, like it just tarnishes your credibility. Yeah. And so, yeah, those are things that you always have to be asking. I know that we've been working together for about like give or take like 15 months. And so I know since then you've been able to quit your job. You've been able to secure 6 figures in brand deals 2 years in a row, which is amazing. So congratulations. I'm really, really proud of you. And I wanted to know, and I know this was one of the questions that a lot of people have asked as well. What do you think helped you level up from charging like $100, $200 to closing like really large contracts? Like aside from, investing in yourself, like what do you feel like helped you level up to get to that level?
It's really hard because I feel like it does like it all centers down to investing in yourself. Like I wouldn't have the deals that I have without investing in your program. Like
yeah, no, I know.
You taught me like how much I was worth I don't know.
I
That's
mean,
really hard.
I think also like relationship building helped you a lot too, because it's like, you really nurtured these relationships. And even though it didn't work out for the meantime, the timing with the perfect timing, like they come back and say, hey, like we're ready to work with you now. You know what I mean? And then another thing too is like, being professional. Like for example, like that one partnership that you had where they paid you twice and you were, you know what I mean? I think you posted out on stories, and then
Yes.
you just posted the partnership recently too.
Yeah, they could have easily just said, "Hey, give me my money back," but
Right.
they didn't know that they had posted the payment twice. So integrity speaks. Like I went back to them and said, "Hey, actually, you double paid me. Do you
Yeah.
want, I can work with you to try to give it back, or do you want to use it toward another campaign?" And they were
Right.
like, "Yes, we love working with you. Let's do another campaign."
That's so cool. Yeah, and since you've already done a couple with them, like, afterwards, you can just like say, "Hey, like what are you working on for the rest of the year? What are you working on for 2025? I'd love to work with you again." So, and just kind of edify them back of like, "Hey, like, you could have easily asked to send the money back, but instead you trusted me to work on another partnership with you." You know what I mean? Because that's still equal risk for them, because it's like another time that they're paying you, they don't, it's ads, sponsorships are always going to be a gamble, and they were happy to take that risk. Yeah. So I guess I should ask you this. So like, what were the things that you had to unlearn the moment that you started working with brand partnerships until like, the time that we started working together? What do you feel like were the things that you had to unlearn?
I
Like as
had
far
to
as like mindset?
definitely had scarcity mindset. And I think we talked about this, that it might be because I am a child of immigrant parents.
Yeah.
And so you learn to like work with what you have. You learn to settle for less. Like you don't
Mm-hmm.
even think that asking for more is an option.
Right.
And so that's something I'm really grateful that you taught me, because that has
Mm-hmm.
definitely landed me significantly more better deals, because now like I know what I'm worth. Like, and
Right.
I'm going to honor that. Like by not speaking up for myself, I wasn't honoring that, and
Mm-hmm.
I was doing myself a disservice for like
Nice.
me, myself, my business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely relate to you on that. I think I talked about it before too. I'm an immigrant. My parents are immigrants. And so it was always taught for us to like not stir up trouble. And so when you're told, okay, like this is how much you're going to get paid, like it's not really like a question of like, do I deserve more? And I think because like, I mean, we're both Filipino, but like for my parents, when they moved to the States, like they know the value of the dollar. And so in comparison to their previous job in the Philippines, like this is exponentially more. And so you just have to be grateful. And so like there was not that like view of like what's fair and what's not fair. And so to them, like the value of the dollar is so much more than where they could have been. And so, and I think for me, I'm a little bit more fiery and a little bit more feisty than my parents. And so just seeing like the inequality, like I think probably like because I went to school here taught me a lot about the inequalities in, corporate America and just like the world in general, that I've learned how to speak up for myself. And also I think just seeing the potential and like what's actually on the table has helped me really understand that, hey, like we all have equal opportunity to do this. And I think just working with a lot of different creators, like sizes of all like backgrounds, of all niches, like it's helped me see what brands are really willing to offer. And so for me, I'm just like, you guys, like when you're saying yes to like a $500 deal, like you don't know what's out there, that you could also be making like, 10 times more from another brand, or like, on another partnership. And so like I think that scarcity mindset, a lot of people like don't understand that like there's always going to be something out there, but like because it's the unknown. And I think that's just like the natural part of like entrepreneurship, because it's so like everything's unknown. You don't know where the next dollar is going to come from. You just want to take what's in front of you because you don't know where the rest is going to come from. And I think like learning those boundaries is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is where you should be shooting for every single time.
And I was gonna add to that, like surrounding yourself with people who have the experience. Like you had a whole community. Like you just reminded me one thing that I used to do when I was in the Spawn Master and not the Accelerator program is you have the Facebook page where people ask their questions. I remember searching F on that page, like for anything to do with like the brands that would contact me, like any finance creators, and seeing like what can I charge for myself.
Yeah.
So I think it's important like to be surrounded by people who have that experience and know what's possible,
Yeah.
so that like you said, you know that you could ask for more, like there's
Mhm.
something to compare it to
Right.
versus unknown.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard. I think it's because like, we all kind of started with like like, being an employee. And so it was determined like, average salary of an engineer, like average salary of whatever job, like, it because you see it online and it's kind of predetermined for you. But like when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's like it's pretty unknown. Like you don't know, what what you could be making. Like there's people that make 5,000, there's people that make 50,000, and so that really depends on the person, that depends on what value they have to give, what kind of product or service, etc. And how well they're marketing and do like selling their product or service, right? Yeah. That's cool. So, when did you, I guess this is going to be like a cool one too. So, when did you feel comfortable to leave your job? Like, can you tell us a little bit more about that story? Because I know you were making like six figures and you made that decision to just leave your company and start creating content full time.
Yeah, that was a very grueling like decision that I've made. Like I was pondering leaving the job for months before I actually quit it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, it came down to one, like how much, like, I was in analytics. So the numbers matter to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how much am I making from content creation? Can I sustain myself? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that July of last year, I remember like looking at my year to date paycheck and looking at like how much I made from my business. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just as much. Like I had made just as much money from content creation than my 9 to 5 job.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like doing that in half the time. Like I was
Yeah.
spending 3 hours a week, right? Doing my
Mm-hmm.
9 to 5 analytics job. But with content creation, I probably spent 10 to 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
So seeing that it was a profitable business helped because like one, like you always want to make sure that you do have that financial security. Like I
Mm-hmm.
made sure that I had a emergency fund, like a 1 year emergency fund
Mm-hmm.
in my personal savings account
Yeah.
and in my business account.
Right.
And so from 2022 to 2023, I had just saved a lot of that money. Like the only
Mm-hmm.
time I used that money was to invest it in like a phone or a computer or a camera, a tripod. But I pretty much built it so that I can, be comfortable and be like, hey, if this doesn't work out,
Right.
I can comfortably live for the next 1 to 2 years. And worst comes to
Mm-hmm.
worst, I just get a job.
Right.
And I think the second thing was just making sure that I had the support from my husband
Mm-hmm.
because that affects both of us. Like
Right.
jumping from like making that line of income, like it affects both of us and our
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. And
Yeah.
so I like we have a 5 year gap. Like at the time, like I was 25 years old and he was 30.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, he got to kind of like, how do I say this? Experiment with what he wanted to do in life. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally have never had that. Like I
Yeah.
I did Running Start program in Washington State, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a program where you can take 2 years of free college while you're in high school
Oh,
and
yeah. 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 Yeah.
then go straight to like university. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that. Like I graduated with my bachelor's, and I was barely 22. I had just turned 22. So I was
Mm-hmm.
very young and like I went straight to work. I didn't even know if that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so he told me, take this chance on yourself and I'll support you if worse comes to worse. And
Right.
so because I had those two things, like the data to back up, like, oh, is this a good business decision?
Mhm.
And two, that support from my husband, I
Mhm.
I took that chance and I quit my job in
Yeah.
end of July. Yeah.
Right. And also having a game plan, because you were like, I need to make sure that I'm good, like we're good financially when I'm making $0. And I think that's a lot. That's what a lot of like creators don't understand. It's like they see the big money of like, let's say they hit 1 month at 30K, like immediately they're like, okay, I'm going to quit my job now, without looking at the data of like, have I been making this consistently? Or like, I know, like, understanding that every month isn't going to be 30K. So like, am I able to still be able to sustain myself? What have I made so far? And what does a pattern look like? Because, we've seen this. I don't know if you've seen this on your For You page. And like, I remember there was like a back to back like videos that I've been seeing of like creators like saying, oh, I hate like being a full time content creator. Like, I'm just going to go back to 9 to 5. Or like a lot of people that do both like are scared to make the jump. And that's just because they just don't have a game plan. And for you, you had an emergency fund before you were comfortable. I want, like, I mean, I envy you, because like I wanted to do that, but like they laid my company laid me off before I had the chance. So yeah, so I mean, we've seen that happen a lot. Like, what do you think about, those creators who like didn't really have a game plan of like, they went into it too fast, like full time, and then they're just deciding, it's not for me, and I'm just going to go back to 9 to 5 because I don't like the instability of income.
It's hard because they were probably really excited. Like they thought this
Mm-hmm.
was like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
But as you know, with the creator industry, like there's seasonalities to it. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the money, like not like with entrepreneurship, like no month is gonna look the same. And
Right.
so I feel like they're doing themselves a injustice by full fronting it without knowing, like without having months of data. Like for me,
Mm-hmm.
I had 1 year and a half's worth of data. Like I knew every number I made for 1 year and a half, like each month. What did that look like? And I put like, how do I say this? Like I tried to make sure that there was some stability even with that income. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
UGC was like a game changer for me because I knew I could at least forecast those clients. Like, oh,
Right.
these clients month to month. So I have a baseline of some income. For those
Mm-hmm.
creators who had overnight success on popping off, but don't even know what to charge for themselves, don't know if they can continuously land deals. You know what I mean? It's easy
Yeah.
to spread it and say it's not going to work because you don't
Right.
have any.
Yeah. No, I'm a data girl too. So like, I
Which
love looking at the numbers. And I think, and I've said this in another podcast too. I think for me, replacing, cuz I was replacing a six-figure income, it made it even more real to me to be like, I'm not playing around. Like, also I was almost like, I was like what, 28 when I made that decision. And so I was like, I don't have time to fool around. And so I have to make a decision, because I've already had 10 years of experience in engineering, and I was like, I have to make a decision. It's either I continue to climb the ladder, because I was already headed towards like a leader, like I already had leadership positions, and so the goal ultimately for me was to become like a director of engineering, or like in project management, things like that. And so that was where I was headed, because I like, they knew I had leadership skills, I knew how to advocate and things like that. But like, I just hated the culture. And so I was like, okay, I have to make a decision, because I can't go back now. Like, there's no, like, I don't have another six-figure income that I can replace this with. You know what I mean? And so for me, when I made that decision that I was going to replace my six-figure income, it was real. I was like, I'm not playing around. Like, this is not something that I need. Like, yeah, sure, my parents can take me in if I can't pay for rent or whatever, but I'm not going to rely on them forever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be 40 and living with my parents. It had, like, you had to have the numbers right, and you also have to have a game plan. sometimes like if you don't know that, like it's so important to like have that kind of community, and then also have, you know, that kind of have access to someone else's perspective of like who's already been in your shoes. Like,
Mhm.
is this actually doable for me? And I like that you said that too. Like, you had UGC as kind of your baseline because you were seeing the pattern month to month they were hiring you. And so it only made sense to be like, hey, like, why don't we do a long-term deal? And so now you have, like, you know what to expect. You're forecasting, okay, I know I'm going to be making at least $5,000 that month. How can I make it into 20 grand? You know, and you weren't like, I think that was the biggest thing with creators who end up like going back to 9 to 5 is like that stress. Like, you
Mhm.
know, the stress of entrepreneurship when you don't know where your money's coming from is on another level. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so just have like knowing like, okay, where can I find that stability? And I think, yeah.
I was going to say the other part to it, like, not only is it financial stress, but I think a lot of creators might be doing the de-influencing because of like mental health. Like, it is taxing to be a content
It
creator.
is. There's so many there.
Like, I know for me, like, I have this problem where like I tie my self-worth to the numbers, and that could be really unhealthy and
It
discouraging.
is.
Might want, creators to, or influencers to, go back to a job because
Yeah.
it's just a whole different beast.
It is. And then it's not just like the numbers. There's also like brands telling you you're not good enough. There's also like haters or trolls that are saying, "Yeah, like I hate this. Like you're like why are you even talking about this? You're not trying to find a flaw basically to like put you down." And then yeah, and then there's the algorithm, like pleasing the algorithm. There's so many things. And yeah, and it's definitely not for the weak. So, what do you think is a big misconception that you had about the influencer industry coming into it? Like, what did you think about, like, what was one thing that you thought about it?
That you had to have 100,000 followers or 1 million followers to have a sustainable, like, to make a sustainable living.
That's true.
I don't know why, but I thought that you had to have that number before you can actually make an affordable living. But
Right.
being at the place I'm at, like, I mean, last year in July, I think I only had 50K followers on TikTok. I still only have 60K. Like, that
Yeah.
to me is insane that, like, you don't have to have a huge following to make a living. That even as a creator, like, you can build multiple lines of income. Like, you could do UGC and that not be tied to your following. You can do affiliate marketing. You can create your own digital product. There's so many ways to make money as a creator. Doesn't have to be tied to your following.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, you know I harp on this a lot because a lot of content creators like wait until they have X amount of followers before they start taking it seriously. And, you know, creators like you, like a lot of, you know, micro influencers who do this full time, like they knew that in order for them to know how like be able to do this full time, like they had to learn the monetization part and the business part from the very beginning. And that is like the most crucial thing because, you know, when you're at the point, like, for example, you already at the 100K mark point, like it's so hard. There's still a lot more things that you have to unlearn.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, when you're at 100K and you're still seeing, like, I still think like accepting $500 is normal. I'm like, what? Like, it's just it's insane to me. Like and you should, like, if you could see like my DMs when I ask people, like, you know, what they're charging, how much they're currently making, and they're big creators. And so the notion for them is like, okay, I'm a big creator. Maybe a manager can just like swoop me up and help me make all these deals because I can't negotiate out of a $500 deal or $1,000 deal. And I'm like, well, when you should have been able to do that or learn how to do that from the get go when you were still starting out, when you still had 20,000 followers, 30,000 followers, because, you know, when you get to that point, and now it's a lot harder for them to get an offer from a manager because they're not at that level.
Yeah. definitely. I mean, even just, I feel like learning it later, like when you have so much following, like, yeah, they just don't, there's so many unknowns. Like, they don't know how to price themselves. And they also, I feel like brands don't feel like they can trust them because they don't have experience working with other brands.
Yeah.
When you're a micro influencer and UGC creator, at least for me, like I've been able to work with a lot of brands that I have a portfolio that brands can see and like they trust and know that I know what the process is like. If you have a huge following and you don't have that, it's harder.
Yeah, it's harder because because people, like, a lot of creators think that it's only like followers and views, but there's so many other metrics that brands look at, especially if you are a bigger creator, because now they're like, obviously they understand that because you're a bigger creator, you cost a little bit more than a micro influencer. And so now they want you to even justify the numbers even more, to be like, okay, yeah, now we could be, offering you $10,000, but like we need to understand that, aside from your followers and your views, that you're able to convert and you're able to generate the results that we're looking for. But like with a smaller creator, there's a like lower risk, but because they see that you're credible and you have a portfolio, it's easier for them to feel at ease of working with you, as opposed to someone who like is a bigger creator, maybe costs more but doesn't have as much experience because they weren't thinking about it in the beginning. Like, oh, they're not paying attention to like, oh, I actually need to start creating content around brands. Like, oh, I have to start training my audience to buy from my recommendations. Like, I didn't know how to, like, they were just focused on viral, but like not necessarily the content strategy to attract a brand. It was just like attracting the follower. You know what I mean? Someone in my stories asked this question: what are the 3 things that people or creators can do consistently to get to this point?
3 things.
Yeah.
Okay, let me think about this one. To get to which point?
To get to, where you are, where you're a full-time content creator, you have consistent work, ongoing, you're still growing your followers. So maybe like, what are the things that you wish you, like, if you could tell your 2020 self, like the 3 things that you need, what would you tell yourself?
Continue to put valuable, educational, entertaining videos. Stick with it because you never know
Yeah.
what it can lead to. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of creators, like sometimes they fall off the wagon and it doesn't lead anywhere because they stop trying. And so
Yeah.
in the very beginning, like I think as a small creator, like a micro influencer, like for me, quantity mattered a lot in the very beginning because I didn't know what worked and what didn't work. And so being able to experiment with your content type and know that it is going to reach some audience and potentially lead to an opportunity in the future, I feel like that's very inspiring and will keep you motivated to keep on going, keep on posting. The second one is, I feel like what we've been talking about through this whole podcast, but educate yourself. Don't skimp out on investing in your education because it can lead to so many opportunities that you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. I didn't know
Right.
what all of these rights were to charge. I didn't know what I didn't know like how much money I was leaving on the table. And until I invested in my education, that's when I saw I'm missing something here and like I can improve now. Like I've made these past mistakes and now it's only up from here because I've invested in educating myself. Like now I know better. I've learned from someone who has done it and who has seen it all. Like I don't know. It's a game changer when you actually decide to like bet on yourself, essentially. So, and the third thing, I would say willing to do what others aren't doing. I would say
That's a good one.
for my repeat clients, like I was willing to take grunt work in the beginning, but that meant building a relationship so they knew that I would be able to be flexible.
Yeah.
And now that they can I could be the go-to person. Like, even though my rates have increased, like a lot of these clients still continue to work with me because of what I've been able to do for them in the very beginning. So
Yeah.
sometimes like being a micro influencer and a UGC creator is really beneficial because you can, how do I say it? You can outshine those big creators in other ways like professionalism
Hmm.
and doing the grunt work, and that could lead to
Yeah.
something bigger in the future. So those are the
Yeah,
three.
because it's easy. It's a lot. Yeah, because it's a lot easier for you to be flexible money wise. Like when you're, let's say, a million, creator, like it's harder for you to kind of lower down your price. You know what I mean? And then, yeah, I love that. Like you've definitely like grown a lot as a creator and as an entrepreneur, and it's only up from here. Like, and I love that you're saying like be willing to do the grunt work and be willing to play the long game essentially, because that's what you were doing. You were okay to build the relation, like to accept something maybe not what you were expecting, but like you were willing to do the grunt work because you wanted to build a relationship, and that what like the value that you have to put to the table, and that's going to help you build those relationships long term. And I mean, look at you now, like you have all these, like this, a really strong clientele, and it's really nice to see people come back to you over and over, because now you've become their go-to. You're just like, okay, yeah, we've done this with Natalie before, and we know for a fact that when we hire her, she is going to be on time, barely any edits. They can predict how you can be, as opposed to someone that they just found, let's say, like on their For You page, they don't know what their work ethic looks like. But working with you, and they've worked with you for so many times, like they know exactly like what the end product will look like. And so that's awesome. I love that. And I know I didn't want to keep this too long or keep you too long. So where can we find you?
Yes, you can find me on my Instagram and TikTok with the handle Invest with Nat. And I share
Awesome.
all things money, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to help, I'm trying to help like people get educated on finances because schools don't teach us this, and our
Yeah.
economy is very different than what the boomers were living. So
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for jumping into this podcast, and thank you for dropping all the knowledge and all the nuggets. And we appreciate you. So thanks.
thank you. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. Alrighty.
Yay.